And, that's totally so true. And it's all connected. And I know you use Lencioni's five functions of a team, dysfunctions of a team as much
Yeah.
as I do, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yes. Love
it's
that
that
one.
pyramid. Yeah. And, what's at the bottom of the pyramid? Trust, right? And if we don't have trust, then because that's the basis of the pyramid. A lot of people think it's on the bottom of the pyramid because it's not. No, it's the foundation of the pyramid,
Right.
right? And after trust is conflict. If you don't trust me to be able to have a crucial conversation and that I have your best interest in mind and that I'm looking to be able to work better together, then we can't manage conflict. And if
Yeah.
we can't manage conflict and we won't have those conversations with each other, when we don't have conversations with each other, we do not develop relationships, which means we aren't committed to each other's success, which is that
Mhm.
next level on the pyramid. And the next level of pyramid after commitment is accountability. If we're not committed to each other's success, then we're not going to be accountable to each other's work, right? So
Right.
we'll throw each other under the bus rather than saying, "Oh, this is the decision that we made. Oh, that's the decision that upper management made. You know how they do things."
Right.
Or, yeah, that worker did that. I don't know what they did, but this is what I'm doing now, right? Those things like that. And if we
Mhm.
can't be accountable to each other's success, work is not as efficient. We don't get as the same results, right? And
Right.
so that's that pyramid. That's the negative piece. But I like to talk about it as it's also a positive when we do have trust with each other and we can manage conflict because we know we have each other's best interest in mind. So if I bring something up that's an issue between us, it's one of those things where, hey, look, this is an issue. I'd like to fix it and move forward, right? And then if we
Yeah.
can manage conflict, then we are committed to each other because we have a better relationship. We're actually happy to see each other, or at least we respect each other to know that we're in, a good place professionally, even if we're not best friends, right? And
Right.
when we're committed to each other, then I can be accountable for your work because I trust you to get your work done. And also, if I notice something that's an issue, I can let you know. And you know where you
Yeah.
see this, you know, um, and then once accountability is there for each other, then results happen. And I always use this example. If you've ever had to submit something to escalate it to different departments and have people sign stuff off. And you have, let's say you miss a space, you don't put a phone number in, or you don't put your middle initial in, or the client's middle initial. It gets kicked back down to you to fill in that box. Information that that person has, right? Or information that they can call you and say, "Hey, Carl, what's the client's middle initial? G. Okay, thanks." Right? They don't do that. People who don't trust each other, they send it back down to you. So now you enter the G into the box and it takes another month,
Right.
right? Because, hey, look, they messed up. It wasn't me, so they need to fix that. Okay, great, great. Who wins that? I don't know who wins. Maybe you're making a point, but who suffers? The customer, the person who now has to wait another few weeks or months to be able to get a determination or benefit or whatever else it is because one box didn't get filled in and it wasn't. I can call Carl. No, I don't know Carl. And you know what? And them people are they never do anything right anyway. So I'm just going to send it down to him and make sure that he knows that he made a mistake, as opposed to let me call Carl just to see. Oh, they don't have a middle initial. Okay, all right, thanks. I appreciate that. Right. That's what
Yeah.
happens when you trust each other. You can, even if you don't know that person, right? I can call and find out what's going on because I have trust that they just might have made a mistake, as opposed to if I don't trust that person, they're always messing up, which is
Yeah.
siloing, lack of information. And that's why you said people have negative responses sometimes, with the whatever government services. And very often it's that hierarchy, it's a hierarchical culture where we look up and we wait for that person above us to make a decision. And there's lack of communication. So very often people are waiting beneath for that one person to make a decision. And and also the further you go up, like you talked about, when you get up into supervision to management, to senior management, there's this idea that you're supposed to know everything.
Mhm.
And what happens when And I know you've seen people maybe come from eligibility to employment services or from a different part of an organization and been dropped in to become a leader in a role that maybe they've never done before. A lot of people, their first thing, well, they've never done this job. So if they don't know that if they've never done this job, then how are they going to supervise us? Well, leadership isn't always about I've done the job. If we trust and we're
Right.
vulnerable, right? Leadership can be, hey, so talk to me about how the job works. And, I trust you as subject matter experts, and you are going to inform me in how things work so that we can work and be successful and I can advocate for you guys. Right. But that's not the general idea. People think, and I don't know about you, but when I was line staff, I thought supervisors just, they had all the information and they didn't really have to do as much. And a lot of people, because we don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, right? And I got into
Damn.
supervision. I'm like, oh, damn, this is a little different. I'm responsible for everyone underneath me and my workload, right? Which is a different perspective that you didn't have. And if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, an issue when it comes to who is that person that is there that I really don't know, I don't have a relationship with. Do I trust that they're going to get stuff done in the way that I would like to get it done? That's another one. Are they going to get it done the way I want it done?
Right.
Right. And then when
You
people
know,
don't get it done the
yeah,
way you want to get it done, they take it personal.
yeah. No, and I think too, it's that whole us versus them or the silos or we're the only ones working hard. Everybody else is just chilling. Like we're doing this and must be nice that they only have to do that. And it's like, it's the lack of vulnerability. That's the vulnerability based trust where I can't be vulnerable because if I admit that I'm wrong, then it makes me less than, or I'm not going to be,
Not as credible. Yeah.
again, yeah, I'm going to lose my credibility. So
Yeah.
people like will hide their mistakes or they'll be like, oh, but that's what so and so told me, or that's what I was taught, instead of being like, oh, I made that mistake. Oh, shoot, I learned it different. What should I be doing? Let's figure this out. That's that lack of trust where everybody's against just so competitive. I must be right. And if I'm right, you have to be wrong. There's no middle ground. And so I will fight to be right. I see this happen in like meetings. People will show up with all of the policies and procedures and the SOPs and highlighted. And this is what the ACL said. And that's why I did it that way versus just saying, okay, what's in the best interest of the client? Like, how can we be accountable? Make sure let's get on the same page. What's going to make the job easier? We can't do that because it's all about being right. And it's that lack of vulnerability. I have to know what I'm doing. And as leaders, it's hard. I think it's a little bit harder because it is that expectation that you're supposed to know everything. I think there's far less forgiveness for leaders. We're expecting them to be perfect all of the time.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's like you get less opportunity to be human. But I also think too, sometimes leaders, because it is very unforgiving, when they do make mistakes, they're unwilling to also be vulnerable. So
Right.
they double down to not admit like, hey, maybe I made a mistake, maybe I didn't have enough information, maybe I changed my mind because I found something else out that may be helpful. But again, it comes back to that drama triangle where someone's feeling victimized. I don't trust you because you made me feel bad, and then the other person's a persecutor and they're thinking the same thing. I mean, like a big hot topic I think of right now that has everything to do with trust is
Mhm.
work from home, having
Yeah.
people come back to the office, and people who have been working from home who have found, work-life balance, who are more productive, whose work is better, who get things done in a more effective, efficient way. And they're like, well, now you have to come back to the office. And they're like, well, why? Why do I have to come back? Oh, no, it's just for collaboration. People don't trust that. No, it's because you want to micromanage me. You want to, people getting fired for the mouse, what you call it, the mouse shakers. What are they called? I don't know if you heard about that. Like Dell, I think, did some kind of, maybe I'm making up the company, but some big company, they checked everybody's computers for the hardware, the mouse shakers, and
Yeah.
they fired everybody who had the mouse mover that kept them active. And so it's like, it's not about productivity, it's about control, right? And so, of course, if that's the thing, then I'm not going to trust you. I
Mhm.
have someone in my life, and I'm not going to say who, but she works from home, and she she does her work. It's just oftentimes not during her work hours. We'll
Sure.
go on vacation or we'll go wherever, and we'll go out and have a great day at the beach or whatever, and then she'll come back and we're all just kind of hanging out. She's right there getting her work done,
Yeah,
getting her work done, and it
yeah,
might be 10, 11 o'clock at night. And she's like, but I'm not going to send any of these emails till tomorrow morning because then, I get in trouble. So it's like, do you trust your employees to get the work done, or do they have to work during that? It's a trust thing. So it goes both ways. The trusting up and trusting down. But
yeah.
when everybody's so suspicious,
No, that
it just
and that's
never goes anywhere.
yeah, that's another bias, Tiff. That it's called proximity bias, right?
Yeah.
Those people who are here that I can see, they're working hard. I can't trust that people I can't see are giving the same amount of work. And what multiple studies have shown, people are more productive working from home, than they were in the office during the pandemic. But then also, I can see the benefit of coming into work, right? There's those conversations that you have in the hallway, or after a meeting that you don't set up a 5-minute Zoom call for. Right. So, those things are definitely important and they're missed, right? But at the same time, you know, um, and I've had people say, well, what if I resent those people who don't come into work because they don't have to? They can come in once a quarter, based off of policy, and they choose to do that. I said, okay, well, you know, why do you resent that? Well, because they don't want to be part of the team. Well, you know, I mean, a lot of people during the pandemic, they moved, right? They took care of elderly relatives. All of a sudden, they're not paying $1,500 a month in childcare and realize how much that's able to save them. They're not commuting 2.5 hours,
Right.
to get to work, and they can be just as productive, right? And so a lot of folks are like, well, this worked for me and I was a good performer, but you still don't trust me. And that's that proximity bias. If you're here, I can see you, I can verify what you're doing. If you're not, then I can't verify, right? And so, and that's, I mean, when I used to work, for an organization where um, our boss said, you can't work from home. I can't see you. I can't know that you're getting work done. And sometimes it was just real simple, like, hey, I'm recording something and there's a white noise in the office. I'd like to be able to work from home where there's no white noise. No, I can't control what you're doing. And so after, once the pandemic happened, people were working from home and they had no choice. And now it's, yeah, hey, God, I can work from home a couple of days a week, right? And yeah, sure, no problem, because that was a forced trust, and forced trust showed that folks were productive, right? So it's it's hard. Proximity bias is real, and also so is FOMO, right? Fear of
FOMO.
missing out. Yeah, I mean, when I talk about having hybrid meetings, some folks are working from home or whatnot, and they're here on the camera, and everyone else is in the break room. I mean, everyone else is in the meeting room, and that person sees that other person leaning over, right? And they're making gestures and smiling and whatnot, and that person from home is like, what are they saying? Are they, I'm talking and they're making faces. Are they, you know, what are they laughing at? Are they paying attention? All those other things like that, that happens when you feel like you might not necessarily be in on all the communication, right? So these things are real, and it's not like, people just they end up saying they grin and bear it. I just deal with it. But we have emotions, and people who say they don't have emotions are lying, or they've just learned to sweep them under the rug, right? I had an
You know,
IT guy tell me, oh, go ahead.
no, I just say, do you know what I tell people who don't have emotions?
How's
Go to
that?
therapy because that's not normal. You go see a therapist. If you don't have emotions, something's wrong. Anyways, what were
Yeah.
you saying about the IT guy?
I had an IT guy who, he talked about, oh, I don't have time to do the things that I want to do because I'm putting out fires all day. I said, okay, so what is it that you want to do? I said, how does that make you feel? And he said, well, I just deal with it. It's part of the job. It's part of what I've always had to deal with, right? And it's what you learn to do in this job. I said, okay, so how does that make you feel? And he said, well, I just deal with it. I said, okay, so How does just dealing with it make you feel? I don't feel anything. I just get it done. I said, okay, so you mentioned that you can't do some of the stuff that you want to do. What is some of that stuff? Well, connect with my team and have regular meetings and meet with them one-on-one to talk about their goals and their development. I said, okay, so how do you feel about not being able to connect with your team and as their leader and help them with their development? Well, it's kind of frustrating. Okay, so how does, you know, putting out fires all day and not building your team make you feel? Well, I guess it's kind of frustrating. Okay, so it's there. It's frustration. What's wrong with admitting that you're frustrated?
Mhm.
What's wrong with admitting that you're worried or anxious? And a lot of it, I mean, the previous generation just dealt with it. They just got to deal with it, rub some dirt on it. I was taught to rub some dirt on it, walk it off, and if you're thirsty, just drink out the hose, all that other stuff, right? But we've seen in the last 30 years this understanding of how our brain works in a much clearer way. And so just because I came up with supervisors or with leaders who said, just deal with it, figure it out, you'll figure out you're smart, doesn't mean that I can't see the value in having those type of leaders who are there and accessible, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of us, we just go through the day, put some blinders on. I got to do 8 hours. I got to punch a clock, just deal with it. Well, okay, but other people don't deal with that, especially the younger generations who have been taught to speak up and advocate for themselves, right? And if you
Mhm.
were taught to speak up and advocate for yourself and you don't have a boss who allows you to speak up and advocate for you, you wonder why, all these organizations that we talk about that used to have people lining up out of the door to take the test to be in there and have permanency with their jobs are now understaffed and can't keep people,
Right.
right? And it's not because of the nature of the work. I mean, nature of work doesn't necessarily change. It's the nature of how our society communicates with each other and how we've been taught to communicate. And it's a difference in generations and whatnot. And so there's a lack of trust there because we don't communicate.
Yeah, too, I think a big part of it too is we say we want something and then we get it and then we're terrified of it, right? Because we're not used to it.
Right.
I I tend to be very vocal about like what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, right? Like again, you probably never need to know where I stand on something. I probably have told you,
Hmm.
even if I'm like, Carl, you pissed me off today. I still like you, but you pissed me off, right? Like I'm gonna tell you. You haven't pissed me off, not today, Carl. You're fine. But what I'm saying is like I usually will be very open with what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And that doesn't necessarily create comfort for other people who maybe are not equipped to deal with that level of transparency. And so I see that also happen in organizations where people are asking for something. I want more transparency. And then they say, okay, here's some transparency. And they're like, oh my God, why are they? This is too much. It's like I want more flexibility. Okay, here's some flexibility. There's no structure here. You wanted flexibility, and that creates mistrust as well, because it's like
Yeah.
you're asking me for something, I give it to you, and now you're telling me that's not what you want either. That makes people start to question, like, is this really what people want? Is it not what they want? You
Yeah.
know, again, I get in trouble all the time. I spend more time in the principal's office, I think, than most people. And I think part of that is just because I will speak up and I will communicate and I will be honest and I will be transparent. And again, that doesn't always sit well, but my integrity comes back into play. Like if I say nothing, I'm an accomplice to the dysfunction, right? If
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't speak up, then I'm reinforcing this thing that maybe is pervasive or that's deteriorating the quality of our work. Or, I mean, I may not be the decision maker, but I have an obligation just as much as anybody else to speak up when I see discrepancies or unfair treatment, or, you're saying this, but you're doing that. Like, what's the right thing to do?
Right.
And it's sometimes when you challenge that authority, it put you in a place where now you come under scrutiny and now you're mistrustful and they mistrustful of you,
Yeah.
when really it's just an opportunity to be honest, you know?
Yeah.
I and again, the emotion part of it, it's frustrating. It is frustrating to say, here's a perspective. Say my perspective is always right. Can I just like clarify that? I'm not always right. I'm wrong a lot. I'm okay with that. I know. I'm being generous here, but I am. There are times where maybe I don't have all of the information, right? So maybe my first instinct is not the right one, but it's still just information. So if I tell you something, I'm not telling you it's like, Carl, you need to change and you need to do this. I'm just sharing information. This is my perspective. This is what I'm seeing. This is how it affects me. What you do with that is up to you. It's not a challenge. It's just information.
Hmm.
I would like you to feel comfortable or anybody else to be able to be honest with me as well. I don't want people to have to write out a script to be like, I need to talk to you about something, but first, just say what you got to say. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's share information, come to some common ground and move forward. But I can't trust an organization that won't do that, where everything becomes like a scandal.
Hmm.
For what? Because I asked for some clarification. Like, come on, get out of here.
Yeah. Why do you need this information? Right? Do I trust that you're going to use it for
Right.
a positive? Right? And so, yeah,
Especially,
absolutely.
yeah, especially when someone has demonstrated over and over and over again that they have the organization's best interest in mind
Hmm.
and they ask questions and now they're the enemy because they had the audacity to ask for more information or to clarify something that doesn't line up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you said, when we connect with people, are we listening? Right? So, you know, everyone has different needs. Some people, those of us who are more task focused, just tell me what I need to get done, right? We don't have to get personal. Let's just get it done. And the other, I mean, okay, so I made a mistake, but you still like me. You still see me as valuable, right? You still see me as somebody who matters, right? And we have a spectrum. It's not just either or. There's people in the middle, right? So let me know that I'm doing a good job. Let me know that you like what I do or that you like me, right? We have different needs, right? I I was managing a team and I had four people and I had weekly or biweekly meetings set up with them. And three of them, they used those meetings and talked to me and we talked about work. We also talked about other stuff, right? And it was good for them. And then the fourth person who is a good friend of both of ours, and some may say your best friend, would come to me and say, "Hey, Carl, do we need to have this meeting? We talk every day. I sit right across from you. We talk all the time. Do we necessarily have to have this meeting?" And I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, it's there for you." She goes, "Well, I don't need it. I mean, when I have something that I need to talk to you about, I usually I'll either see you in the cubicle or I'll give you a call. We have that connection, and we're really good friends. We were good friends before we became in that working relationship, right? And so
Yep.
I told her, I said, okay, well, we don't have to have the meetings, but the meetings are still going to be on the schedule just in case you want to have that time. I'm going to block that time off for you, right?
Mhm.
So she didn't need it, right? But those other folks did. And so for me, recognizing that there's differences in how people, you know, want connection or the stream of communication is definitely something, everyone's an individual. That individuality, everyone's a fingerprint, right? And so different strokes for different folks. Just because you have a team doesn't mean you can treat them all the same way. So you got to take time to really understand what's going on. And if you have a team of folks who, is new or, people come in all the time historically the way you've done things, cool, you've done things and they've been successful. Guess what? That's not always going to work, right? And so, what history tells us is to pay attention for certain things, but also History tells us that, there's always something new. There's always something new. We're always progressing. We're always evolving, right? And our society evolves, and communication skills and the level of involvement and things like that, it evolves over time. Mm.
I agree.
And so thinking about
So
that, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just gonna ask a question. So, with all of this being said, again, the idea here is trust. So where do we
Mhm.
start in building trust in organizations? I mean, we can all agree that not having trust doesn't benefit anybody. So
Yeah.
what do we do to be more trustable? How do we start?
Well, yeah. So, excuse me. The first thing, like I said, for me, two things that we have to really establish: integrity, right? You say you're going to do something, you do it, right? And and I don't have to sit there and watch you do it or be worried that it's going to get done, right?
Mhm.
So I know that you can get it done. And if I've never seen you work, I mean, I'm going to assume, or I'm going to make, that's a challenge. I'm going to make that assumption, right? That you're going to know what you're going to do. But the thing about integrity is, there's things to it that have to go with integrity. You have to be vulnerable. This is what I know. This is what I don't know, right? And so, my integrity, part of integrity is raising my hand and saying, "Hey, boss, I'm struggling with this, right? I need some help with this, right? Or I'm not quite sure where to go with this, right?" It's the same as with your boss. Hey, staff,
Mhm.
you know, I did this job years ago. You guys are doing it now. Something's come up. I need your advice on how to get it done, right? And so having that, that idea of integrity is important. The second thing is consistency, being the same person every day, right? When you walk in that door as a staff member, you know, you know what you're going to get from your boss, right? And it's not easy to be the same person every day, is it? I mean, we wake up with
No, you can. I
migraines.
think it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, issues with our kids, family, money, right? There's so many different things, right? The train that was supposed to get there at 8:35 got there at 8:32 and was 15 minutes making you late, right? All those other things like that, right? That's annoying. But to walk in the door and to be that same person every day, even if it means consistency means that I'm communicating with you. Hey, didn't have the best morning, so and once I have my coffee, I'll be in a better mood, right? And just those things like that, so people know what to expect when they're interacting with you, right? So can take consistency and integrity. Communication is so important. If we don't talk to each other, our brain will make up what that other person thinks is going to happen, right? It's just like, hey, Tiff, when you get a sec, can you come to me in my office, right? The immediate place we go to is what I do wrong, right?
Mhm.
And unless I say, hey, Tiff, when you get a sec, I want to talk to you about that new all county letter that came in. I just want to brainstorm some ideas with you. You're really good at brainstorming ideas. That's a different response. Or even, hey, Tiff, I want to talk to you about that incident with the client the other day in the lobby. They filed a complaint. I just want to get your side of the story to see what happened. Even if it's negative, now that little 10 seconds of context is now allowing me to have a preparation. No one likes to go into a conversation not knowing what to expect. No one likes a pop quiz, right?
So wait, are you suggesting it's not a good leadership practice to say, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something. I'm inviting HR. I'll see you in 10 days."
Yes, yeah. I want
Are
to
you
talk to
saying
you
that's
about.
not a good
Yeah.
business practice? Oh,
Well,
okay.
the way I would do it is, hey, I want to talk to you about something, and it's this and this, or on this date this happened, and I want to have the conversation, and I'm inviting somebody from HR to sit in with the conversation, like to have it resolved, right?
Right,
So because
right,
that other person now is walking into the conversation defensive,
right.
right? As opposed to I'm prepared to have a conversation, right? And so
Hmm.
there's that little bit of doubt that makes our limbic system work overtime and immediately puts us into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that always leads to defensiveness,
Right.
right? So that's, there's There's better ways to do things. But, oftentimes, we think we can't give too much information, right? You give as much information as you can. People think rumors and gossip spread from too much information. Gossip and rumors spread from lack of information. When I don't
Right.
know what's going on, my brain will make it up, and my brain will catastrophize it and make it the biggest thing, when very often it's something that's fixable, right? So we have to communicate, right? We have to recognize each other. We have to recognize each other as valuable, right? We have to, just connect and, thanks guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for staying late and clearing out the lobby. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your hard work. You were on the road for 2 weeks straight. Wow. I mean, our counties really, really appreciate you. I get that. I get that. It makes me feel validated, right? And I really do appreciate that when I hear those things from folks, and and recognize people the way they want to be recognized, right? Not just, stand up and clap for people at an all staff. That's not everyone likes that, right? What if you take me
Mhm.
in the office and tell me specifically what I did well? I might respond better to that. I might respond better to an email, right? I might respond better to something at the end of the year on my check, right? Different people
Mhm.
respond to those things in different ways. And that's the thing. We have to connect with people individually. We have to get to know those people that we are responsible for in an individual fashion. Just because person A, just wants to get stuff done and work things in the way that they want them done, doesn't mean that person B wants to be treated the same way. So, those are things that I've really, thought about, and we have to communicate. We have to let people know if you save stuff up, hey, you did this, and this is a pattern of behavior you've had for the last 3 months. My first response is, why are you bringing up bullshit? Right? Everyone's seen Friday, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
that's that's the thing. Why didn't you talk to me about this 3 months ago when I could have corrected this behavior? Now you have this pattern that you can use against me. And now my brain is working overtime. They have it out for me.
Right.
As opposed to this person I've had I've been wanting to talk to this person for 3 months and I don't know how to do it. And finally it's to a point where if I don't talk to them, then I'm going to get in trouble myself. Right. So we wait till the very last minute to have this conversation and it breeds mistrust between people as opposed to, hey, this is a situation that happened. I want to see, what you thought about it, how we can fix this now before it blows out of proportion. Right. And I mean, there's just so many things that go into interactions. It's not just about performance and production. It's about the people that are performing and producing. And if we don't treat those people like human beings, if we treat them like bodies, I was just having this conversation last week at a place I was training. They said, well, we're just hiring people because, we need bodies. And so at the end of my conversation, I told them, if you're going to hire bodies, that's exactly what you're going to get.
Mhm.
If you hire bodies, that's what you're going to get, bodies. Right? Without necessarily the specific skill sets or critical thinking, right? And not everyone's ready to down. This ain't the Matrix where you can just hire a body and just plug something in the back of their head and all of a sudden I know kung fu,
Exactly.
right? You know.
Well,
So how you feel?
I'm thinking the one that stands out always to me, but again, something that's important to me is integrity. But I think integrity is like have honest conversations, like tell the truth, admit when you're wrong, take ownership, when you've made a mistake. Um, don't take credit for other people's work. Like be original. Like those are all things. Like talk to people, don't talk about them. Like these are all things with integrity.
Right.
Um, but I also think that generosity, and this is something I definitely will try to work on as well. I got to be vulnerable too, is the giving people that benefit of the doubt and the generosity. Like I do try to really like believe like in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. But, when that trust has been broken, it's hard to get back into that space. And so I think for me, that's one thing I will try to practice is to be a little bit more generous with my assumptions of other people and maybe not take things so personally. Although it feels personal, it may not be personal. And so um, people do change. people do change. I know for sure I'm not the same person I was 5, 10 years ago, and other people may not be the same, but uh, I'm going to work on the generosity for sure. I'm going to try at least. I
Well,
can't
I mean,
guarantee it'll go well, but I'm going to try.
yeah,
Try
but I
to.
mean, you at the same
Yeah.
time, I mean, our protective instincts are there for a
Hmm.
reason, right? So, they keep us safe. They've kept us safe as we've evolved as a species to the top of the food chain. They've kept us safe in maybe relationships that haven't gone well, maybe families that haven't necessarily interacted well. They've kept us safe in jobs, right? And so we lean on those and rely on those. And when we do it too much, when we don't give people the benefit of the doubt, when we start putting people in those buckets of the same people that we've interacted with 25 years ago, and that gets in the way of being able to truly trust that person. But those little behaviors, right? I mean, those breed mistrust. Hey, I need to talk to you about something, and no other
Hmm.
context, right? Or, I heard this person say this, and this person said this, and this person said this about you, and the drama triangle. It breeds distrust,
Hmm.
right? And, well, I don't talk to those people over there because they're in that department and they think they're better than us. Do you have verification of that? No, it's just that's how it's always been. Okay. Right. And so these things breed mistrust, breed that lack of communication. If we don't communicate, we can't tell somebody has integrity. If we don't communicate, we can't tell somebody's being consistent because in our head, they're consistently bad, right? Or
Hmm.
consistently out to get
Yeah.
us. We have to know that people have our best interest in mind until we know that they don't have our best interest in mind, right? So trust but verify. We can verify that people, are dealing with us fairly, and we can verify that people are being dirty,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing wrong with protecting yourself. It's just if your protective instinct is the first thing that comes, how does it affect your interactions with those people who you have to trust are getting things done in the right way? And I think it goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the class. You have to be trustable. I
Mhm.
mean, if you know in your heart that you're doing things the right way and you follow procedures, which doesn't mean that you're going to do everything perfectly, but that you follow procedures, you can say, oh man, I made that mistake. I'll definitely fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I had that last week. I had somebody, these receipts, right? And hey,
Dang
so
receipt.
I, I've never been good with receipts. It's hard. I try to do things online now so that I have a copy, but if it's a receipt that comes from a restaurant or something like that, I'll put it in my wallet, then my wallet will wear it out, right? So you can't see things, right? So, anyways, so I forgot some receipts and I got a response. Hey, look, you had some receipts missing, and this is not the first time this has happened. So my response, I could easily say, well, why are they paying attention to me? Does anybody else have this problem? But my response was, yes, I know that this is something that's an issue for me. And I was being vulnerable. Do you guys have any way to anything you guys think can be helpful for me to be able to do this for you? I'd definitely be open to. And there was a response, and it was something I had not thought of. And so I said, okay, great. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I didn't think of that. And it's actually something that is not hard. I just have to make sure that it's part of my regular practice. We get so much done during the day. We take in so much information, 11 million bits per second, right? And sometimes things get missed. Sometimes, we forget to mail that bill in. Sometimes we, you know, run out of gas. Sometimes we don't let the dog in, right? I mean, those things get missed on a regular basis. We're human beings, right? But to trust that we're humans and that the mistakes we're making are human mistakes rather than they are inherently trying to get over or they're evil. I mean, how many people do you know in this world, Tiff, that are truly, truly evil, right? That are out to do people dirty
I don't know if they,
or on 100, 90% of the time, right? I
yeah.
don't have that many people that I know that are dirty. I know people who are suspicious of other people's motives, but at the same time, how do I help them breed that trust? So I
Yeah.
called myself on my own. Hey, look, I made that mistake. That's something that I will continue to work on. Right. So thank you for that information. And we left it at that. And I will continue to work on it. And when I make a mistake, hey, I did it again. I did it again. Right. But that's the communication level that we have to have. Right. I had a
Yeah.
boss one time tell me, you're a PhD. You're supposed to know this stuff. Like, I'm a PhD in training and performance improvement. I mean, we're talking about economics, we're talking about other stuff like that. Am I supposed to know everything?
Mhm.
Right. So and I didn't. But that's my level of vulnerability. I'll tell you what I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you think I know everything, you're setting me up for failure. You're setting me up for failure because you think I should know this stuff. Your assumptions are causing me to fail at those things that can be easily corrected. Give me the benefit of the doubt. I want to be trustable to you.
Yeah. I agree. I'm pretty open to when I make mistakes. My bad. Okay, I'll fix it. I think I get a little bit frustrated though when it's uh different information every single time. You know, like that's the lack of consistency, and then I start to get a bit suspicious. Like, why am I getting this feedback differently every single time? You told me to do it this way, I did it that way. Now you're telling me to do it the other way. I did the other way, and you told me to do it this way. Now you okay, let me do it this new way. Oh, you did it wrong. Do it this other way. Like, okay, can you just make up your mind? Because I'm having a hard time following what you want me to do. I'm happy to do it. And if I get it wrong, I'll fix it. But good gosh, make up your mind. Make up your mind.
Yeah. And so, like we had in the last class, or in the last session, I have some questions this time,
Do
for
it.
our listeners, right? So the first thing is, what's something that causes you to mistrust somebody, right? What's something that's a red flag, something that triggers that level of mistrust that you might have, right? The second, where do you think that comes from, right? And the third is, what happens when that trigger is released?
Mhm.
And the fourth is, how can you get over it? Right. So three things that within yourself, right? What's something that causes me to start to mistrust somebody? Where does it come from? And how do I react when it happens? And the fourth is, what's something that I can do to be able to address that, to help not have that happen? Because we have to do it intentionally. Your brain will automatically go to, I don't trust that person. That's it.
Mhm.
Right. But intentionally, we can say, what else do I need to know? That level of curiosity, right? What is it that I'm seeing, feeling? How do I know that it's something that is mean spirited, or, the intentions are negative, right? That's the level of curiosity we need to have, because otherwise we'll just act on that limbic response, fight, flight, or freeze. We can X that person out of our life. But if we're a leader, it causes us to treat that person differently than other folks. And that can break up a team so quickly. So those are
Just
my
have
four
one because I like
questions.
your questions. I like your questions. I just have one, and that is,
Mhm.
what can we each do individually? So everybody just think about themselves. What can you do to be more trustable? That's it,
Love it.
right? It's great
Love
about
it.
trusting other people, but what about you? That's where you have the most control. What can you do to be more trustable? I definitely am going to work on that idea of generosity and see how that goes. Let's see how it
Yes.
goes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I trust that we've had a stimulating conversation. I'm just going to believe it because I enjoyed this, and I think it was a good conversation. So um I know how you feel about that, Tiff. So
I love it. Yeah, no, I'm happy right now. I'm stuck right now in processing mode because this applies to all people, and so uh I'm really just thinking in processing mode. How do I become more trustable, and how do I be more trusting of others, especially again with that idea of generosity, because it that I feel that in my spirit today for
and if
sure.
you're the only and if you're the only person around you who wants to have that spirit of generosity, how can you model that for
Yeah.
other folks? Each one teach one, right? So
Yeah.
how do we breed that confidence within our workplace, within our friend space, within our
Yeah.
families, right? So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, until the next time, I am
Yes.
Carl,
I'm Tiff.
and keep it real.
Keep it real.
We'll see you next time.